The Toronto Blue Jays have been linked to a star pitcher, Max Fried of the Atlanta Braves, maybe formerly of the Atlanta Braves, who has had an amazing career at the Major League Baseball level, has been linked as a prime suspect for the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Jay's Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vrytonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And before we get into this new report that dropped, we want to let you know that this video is brought to you by Rentals.ca, who are proud supporters of Team Canada. And while they've been supporting our national team defend their home court in international competition, they've also been helping thousands of Canadians find their home floor all across the country, whether you're in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Halifax, Winnipeg, Mississauga, Edmonton, Vancouver, Victoria. I'm getting mixed up. Wherever you are, they got you covered.
Yeah, from coast to coast, Rentals.ca has a ton of options to find the perfect place and price for you. Their website is clean, super easy to use. The best part is you can pinpoint exactly on the map where you want to move, finding all the available options in your area. So find your home court with Rentals.ca. Check out the link in the pinned comment as well as the description down below. And thank you to Rentals.ca for supporting us, supporting Team Canada, and of course, supporting you guys and finding the best rentals across the country. So thank you again to Rentals.ca for sponsoring this video. Peter, there's a lot of stuff going on right now surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays. We obviously had our stream yesterday, some things were going down, but some other things are going down, and Blake Snell has signed officially. So Blake Snell is off our potential Toronto Blue Jays, dartboard of starting pitchers. And we'll dive into that signing, of course, throughout this video. But I want to start with this that dropped. And it's a brand new report from about Max Fried. I wish it was from Max Fried, from Jeff Passan. And Max Fried called the perfect transaction for the Toronto Blue Jays this season from Jeff Passan. And basically, he dropped an article revealing that the Jays, like Ben Nicholson-Smith has, heavily pursuing starting pitching. And the name was Corbin Burnes, Blake Snell, and of course, Max Fried. But he basically goes on to say, you can see at the top here, beyond their pursuit of Soto, the Jays want a high-end arm to join Berríos, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassitt, and Bowden Francis in what could be one of the bbest rotations in baseball. And he goes on to say, the Jays are connected to the top free agents, Max Fried, Corbin Burnes, Blake Snell. The interest is somewhat surprising. Every team needs their, the pitchers. And ultimately, the 30-year-old Fried was the guy that Jeff Passan linked as the perfect transaction for the Toronto Blue Jays. And the spot track, which we'll dive into later in the video as well to help project some things, estimates his market value at 6 years, $136 million. So Peter, you can see the bottom here. The Jays are likely waiting to see what Soto decides before they pivot. All that is true, but literally, moments, a while recently, yesterday as of the time of uploading this, but he signed a big contract with a $52 million signing bonus, and the actual contract was big. It's 5 years, $182 million. So there's a lot to unpack here. But what are your thoughts on Max Fried being named by Jeff Passan, the most tuned-in guy in the industry, as the perfect transaction for the Toronto Blue Jays?
I thought so too, until I actually saw that Blake Snell contract. Now, I don't want to burst the bubble of Jays fans or our own bubbles here, Nick. But if Blake Snell, a guy who I think is less reliable, maybe has higher upside
Agreed.
Than Max Fried because of the strikeout potential and just the overall stuff that he has, but definitely a riskier contract than if you were to go out and get Max Fried. If he's getting 182 million, you got to believe that Fried's going to be close to that mark, if not just slightly above it, based on what he's accomplished and the consistency that he's shown over the course of his major league career. So I thought that this would be a perfect move for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I'm not so sure because I see him getting a similar contract to that, and I don't know if the Blue Jays are going to be willing to go to that length, or if anyone is going to be willing to go that high on a Max Fried contract. There's no real question marks surrounding him, but he's a a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. Whereas you know what you're getting out of him. His stats have been pretty similar all across the board over his entire career. And he is what he is. He's a solid, probably number two, maybe a very good number three starter. That's what Max Fried is. So I think he's going to get paid big time, especially considering that Blake Snell contract. And it just shows that the Dodgers are playing a different ball game here. They just have FU money, for lack of a better word. They're able to go out there and spend money that other teams don't even think about spending, and they do it in a heartbeat. They don't even think about it here. And I mean, Blake Snell, 182 million, 5 years with his injury history, his lack of consistency. It's scary. It's a scary thought.
Yeah, and this took the baseball. I mean, this literally took the baseball world by storm. Yesterday night when it happened, and you look at this now, like you mentioned it, he's a very consistent starter. Last season a 3.5 WAR, a couple years prior to that a 6 WAR. Like he's had some really good Cy Young caliber years. I think his median and his average is probably somewhere in there. A three ERA guy, someone who can be very consistent, which quite frankly is something the Jays could desperately use. However, if Blake Snell is getting 5 years, 182, Blake Snell was coming off of an elite season, better than that of Max Fried, who also had a very good year. But Blake Snell's year with the the Giants was beyond great. And again, he's kind of been a guy for, Blake Snell's a super high ceiling. We know that. But Peter, as you look at some of the projected contracts, and this obviously was before, this was before this deal just happened. Of course, it happened yesterday night. Giants, 31 years old. Snell can opt out of his 1 year deal, which he did to join free agency. He projects to a 5-year, $130 million deal. So he ultimately got a lot more money. Almost, he got what, $52 million more dollars than he was projected to get from Spotrac, which is coincidental, lines up with the signing bonus as well. But I mean, you look at now Max Fried's projected salary. 6 years, 130. So if you kind of use the similar, thinking here, and clearly Scott Boras this time isn't waiting around and letting his free agents out to dry like he did last offseason with Blake Snell and Matt Chapman. Max Fried, 6 years, 130. If Snell got 6 years, 182, depending on what side you're in.
182.
Yeah, 182. Yeah. What are you thinking for Fried? 6, 150, 6, 160, something like that. Maybe even more. It depends, though. I do want to make the argument that there are some teams that would value Blake Snell more than Max Fried because of his upside and because of his ability to, I don't know if Max Fried at this point could be a guy who is a Cy Young finalist. He was 2 years ago, but I don't know. Blake Snell has that opportunity. Blake Snell is also riskier, so I thought he was going to be cheaper. We said it in our live stream yesterday. Things are getting really crazy and really expensive, so maybe they pivot to a guy like Jack Flaherty or Nick Pivetta.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody was matching this offer for Blake Snell, which
That's why
is
he signed so early.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He signed so early in the offseason because no one in their right minds would give him $182 million. But when you have the financial flexibility that the Dodgers do, when you have a player that is generating $150 million of revenue for you every single season, and I'm talking about Shohei Ohtani, yeah, maybe you can make some rash decisions like this. I don't know if any other team in Major League Baseball is giving Blake Snell even $150 million or $130 million. So as for Max Fried, I think that definitely eliminates the Dodgers from his sweepstakes.
Yeah.
At least you would hope so, right? You would hope so. And it probably eliminates them from the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes as well, because their starting rotation seems to be in pretty good shape right now, especially with Shohei Ohtani coming back into the fold, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, maybe Clayton Kershaw if he can stay healthy. Like they're going to be a good rotation next year, whether they sign someone else or they don't. But they have a lot of options there, and I think their team is pretty set. I mean, they already won the World Series in 5 games pretty comfortably, so this is just an this point. But little mix up there, Nick. But yeah, I can't see Max Fried getting more than that. And I couldn't even see Blake Snell getting more than that. But here we are. I mean, the first big domino to fall in the offseason is Blake Snell. And we were on record saying that he was probably going to be the cheapest out of the three when we're talking about Corbin Burns, Max Fried, and Blake Snell. We thought that the Jays would be able to get a flyer on Blake Snell for the lack of consistency and the fact that he didn't throw too many innings last year. But here we are, $182 million deal, 5 years to the Dodgers, who are World Series champs. I mean, good for you, Blake Snell. You're probably going to add to your hardware by the end of the year.
Yep, and quite frankly, things are heating up though, at the very least. And you look at it here, Max Fried, I would still love it. I don't know what I would still take him at 6 years, 130. If it's getting a lot more than that, things will be very interesting. But let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. Things are getting crazy. We had the first big transaction, the first blockbuster one, and I will say that there's nothing quite like free agency with baseball regarding how many moves are going to be going down. You can probably make the argument the NBA is pretty up there as well. But let us know down below what your thoughts are. And thank you again to Rentals.ca for sponsoring this video. See you guys later.